So I played every single Supercell game to see how good they are in 2025. Now there are a total of 7 globally launched Supercell games right now, so I will only be covering those as Supercell has an old habit of killing a lot of their underdeveloped games, so there is no point in playing them. Then the second thing to keep in mind is that all of these games are a massive lifetime grind, so I only played each game for 1 hour to see how engaging of a storyline, gameplay and visuals each of these games had. So without wasting any more time, the first game that I played was Clash of Clans. The first big game that Supercell made, and even though it was not the first one in general, since Heyday came before that, but we will start from it. So the whole story of this game begins when the evil greedy Goblin King attacks our little defenseless village, but we set up our defenses and punish those goblins by attacking them in return. And that marked the end of the storyline. We surely have a whole single player goblin game mode, but the storyline becomes passive, and instead the focus of the game shifts to attacking other villages and building our own bigger and bigger. But since I have played this game for long, and still do, I know there are a couple of other storylines too, like builder based and clan capital, and if we miss something, there's additional lore like Supercell animations and Clash-O-Rama series. And that compensates way more than it's required. And quite frankly, despite having a lackluster visible storyline, the game never feels like it's lost. And that's because the gameplay is completely integrated with the story, where you gather resources by attacking other villages, and then use those resources to upgrade your buildings, troops, and the best defense of the game, walls. You can also join a clan and can get help from players while playing like a team. The one good thing that I found was the removal of training time. This video would have been much different if training time was a thing. In addition, building time is also fast, so my climb to higher town halls was a quick one, which would have taken a long time before. So in terms of storyline and gameplay, I'll give it a 4 out of 10 and 6 out of 10 respectively. In my 1 hour of playing, I did not get bored at all, so that's a good one. But now coming to the third important thing in the game being its visuals. Then Clash has a soothing vibe. The lush green and wonderful background music makes me wanna sleep, but relaxed kind of sleep and not the bored kind. For the first 1 hour, I could not see any scenery or skins, but I know that eventually I will get them, but for the purpose and fairness of this video, I will not include them while scoring. But even without them, the game is very interactive and full of details even in the early parts of the game. So in terms of visuals, I'll give it another 6 out of 10, taking its total to 16 out of 30. Then next game was Heyday, Supercell's farming simulator and their very first still available game. And from the very first minute, I could see why your mother would like it more than you. It's an extremely slow-paced game, which starts when our uncle decides to retire from the farming life, and we get the farm for ourselves. Don't get too excited though, because it's just an empty plot and no real farm, at least for now, because then we enter the tutorial, and a weird-looking girl teaches us the basics of Heyday. We do the sowing and harvesting, feed the chickens, and then our neighbors greets us and takes us to his farm. And boy, he got some super advanced stuff there. A part of me feels that he only invited us to his farm to simply flex over us, like a true jerk neighbor. And that marked the end of game's storyline. Just like Clash of Clans, it's also a little lackluster and is more tied to the gameplay itself, but not to the extent of Clash of Clans. So storyline wise, I can only give it a 2 out of 10. But its gameplay is also not any good either. It involves us planting the crops and waiting, preparing feed for animals and waiting, feeding the animals and then waiting, starting making bread and butter and then waiting. Basically the gameplay is more about waiting than playing. And if you compare it to Clash of Clans, then Clash still has other elements to it like attacking other villages, but Heyday does not have anything like that. So we are simply stuck looking at a screen and a timer which doesn't seem to move at all. So the gameplay is just made to open game, start some timers and exit the game. For the first 20 minutes I was like this is going to be decent, but the last 20 minutes of the game were absolute pain. I could not wait for the timer to hit 1 hour so that I can just stop playing and move to the next game. So in terms of gameplay, I'll give it a 1 out of 10. And if we talk about its visuals, then it's decent. Icons and background are bright. Background music has a laid-back feel to it. I enjoyed cutting wheat, but it's not something out of this world or even to the quality of other Supercell games. So in terms of visuals, I'll give it a 4 out of 10, which takes its total to 7 out of 30. Then next game was Boom Beach, one of the least rated Supercell games. People don't love it, people don't hate it, it's just a forgotten game that always stayed in the shadows of Clash of Clans. But quite frankly, the game felt a little different and unique to me. It started when we reach an archipelago, which is engulfed in a war, and we join the war as well. It was big, it was brutal, and our allies were taking huge casualties. So we finally land our units, but it did not go as planned, and we lost a lot of our military. But then a weird evil Baldi person appeared, who is actually the villain of this story, and he brings out his powerful robotic crab. But using our advanced units, we managed to defeat it, but the Baldi promised to return. Back in the war zone, we decided to retreat to reinforce ourselves, and to hold back the enemies to facilitate our escape. The loyal units sacrificed themselves to escort us, so huge respect. But a week later, we set up our new base to a new island to get powerful again, and after getting some units ready, we go to a new battle zone to liberate it. And that uncovered the dark storyline of this game, where each island is invaded by some colonizing power, and we are actually fighting to free all of them. In my 1 hour of playing, I could not find who did it, but the game is definitely extremely interesting, and gives you a valid reason to attack. So in terms of storyline, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Then the gameplay of this game is what truly pulls it down. All you have to do is place your units on the beach, and they would do their own stuff, and you can also use artillery to attack base like a spell. So I could see why people compare it to Clash of Clans. The only difference was that it's just like playing Goblin stages instead of attacking other players. So in terms of gameplay, I'll give it a 4 out of 10. While the visuals are decent on this game as well, it's more like Heyday than Clash of Clans, so I'll keep the score same and give it a 4 out of 10 as well, taking its total to 15 out of 30. Then the next Supercell game was Clash Royale, the game that I have played the most after Summoner's Creed, and quite frankly, there is no real storyline to this. It's purely a gameplay driven game. Surely the external lore like Clashorama exists, but in-game concept is simply you versus the opponent, so I'll only give it a 1 out of 10. Then the gameplay is one of the richest. I think it's the second best overall gameplay amongst Supercell games. You have a massive pool of cards, from which you choose 8, and then battle an opponent in real time using that. You have to adapt, constantly outsmart and find a way to beat your enemies. Except some of the interactions, it's all about skill. You need to be good at the game to win. But when you don't, the game also becomes frustrating and force you to rage quit. I, while playing this 1 hour test run, played 28 matches and won all 28 of them. And that also with the 3 crown. I primarily focused on using over-leveled mini P.E.K.K.A. and it was absolute crazy run. So in terms of gameplay, I'll give it a controversial 8 out of 10. 2 less points because it does feel repetitive after a while, so requires a little bit of break to play again. 2v2, different challenges, and merging game mode do give a bit of extra content, but 8 is still a reasonable number, as I did not play any of those game modes in that 1 hour. And then the visuals of the game are average. It's a PvP card game, so not too much interactive things. But we do move from arena to arena, where each one has its own different feel. All of the 121 different cards have their own unique mechanics, so I'll give it a 5 out of 10, taking its total to 14 out of 30. Then the next game was the best of Supercell so far, being Brawl Stars. It started with a simple tutorial, but the storyline soon began when we unlocked the Trophy Road. And with that, we get the first glimpse of the Star Park entrance. And I think we all know what that means, the deep dark Star Park lore. I don't even have to explain it, you can just watch the game theory. In general, even if one don't know about the Star Park lore, there is still that intro and a curiosity-filled vibe to it. And it does look cheerful, so you can say that it's the second such Supercell game which has a direct in-game lore after Boom Beach. So it gets an 8 out of 10 in terms of storyline. I'll admit that the Star Park livestream and stuff also influenced my score, even though they are not part of the game, but it is what it is. Then Brawl Stars also has best gameplay amongst all of the Supercell games so far. You choose the brawler and take it to a ton of different game modes, from single player game mode like Solo Showdown to multiplayer game modes like Gem Hunt and my favorite Knockout. I played this game for 365 days last year, so it was like a heavy hit of nostalgia playing the game again. and the more fun was the final 30 minutes of the game when I teamed up with two random players and formed a formidable team. Surely I always had an explosive high risk playing style, so I was the MVP almost all of the time, but a team is team. I'm just a little bit sad that I'll never open the game again, and the team is disbanded because of that. And this all becomes part of the gameplay. The little emotional connection hooks you to the game for a long time. In addition, each of the brawler is unique, so you get a massive pool of options to pick from, refreshing the experience every single time. So in terms of gameplay, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. Then next, coming to its visuals, then none of the Supercell games have out of the world visuals, and same goes for this game as well. But it works. You don't get too distracted by random stuffs, and most of the obstacles can be destroyed using a proper super, making it feel more interactive than it is. Then maps change daily, adding to the fun as well. So in terms of visuals, I'll give it a 7 out of 10, taking its total to 25 out of 30. Then the next game in the list was Squad Busters. I played it on release, got bored and deleted, but the game has changed a bit now. Where at the start of the game, we get the option to select amongst king or queen to be our main hero, and then we gather our squad and clear the area from monsters to set up our base. And that's the whole storyline, I guess, because we never get any lore ever again, so it gets a 3 out of 10 in terms of storyline. Then the gameplay has definitely improved from the first time. The core gameplay is still just to collect most amount of gems without dying, or simply not dying in other game modes, but now you get one hero unit, and you build your squad around that. And you also have to use the skills, one from the hero and two extra from your pool of squad skills. And then you gotta run around on the whole map, beating little monsters on map, chopping down trees, killing bosses and building your squad up. And when the time comes, defeat your enemies. I kind of enjoyed it, I won't lie. So in terms of gameplay, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. I did not give too high of a score because games still feel a bit stretchy, but it's still better than before, so if you played it on release, do give it another chance. And then coming to its visuals, then the maps are good. They keep shrinking over time, and we can destroy almost everything on the map, and they still keep regrowing. And map and game modes also keep changing over time. Basically, each new game has a different map. Though models are still a bit clumsy, when there are multiple squads in an area, it becomes difficult to tell which unit is yours and which is not. So it does loses some point due to that. So in terms of visuals, I'll give it another 5 out of 10, taking its total to 13 out of 30. And then the last game was Moko, the game which I don't even remember when it got released, but still, we start the game with a group of people fighting weird monsters, but seeing the monsters number rising, our joining application gets approved, and after taking our new weapon and petting our cat, we enter the battle zone, where I suppose we fight alongside other new players, but the main play is to complete quests. And as we finish each of these quests, we unlock more and more rewards, as well as more of that lore, where center of all the power and trouble is something called the Chaos Energy. And these storyline bombshells never stopped throughout the whole game. The Monsters company give us a lot of tech and gear just to kill these monsters. I'd love to join a real life version of such startup as well. So in terms of storyline, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Especially because there is internal lore in the game, and we don't need to scout the internet for the same. Then the gameplay is a fun one, swinging bat or whatever weapon you have, and killing bunch of enemies to complete the quest. And after doing so, just return home and get your reward. Now even though it feels fun, but it still is limited, we have to follow what quests tell us to do, and that becomes somewhat uncool. So in terms of gameplay, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Then Moko has the most stunning visuals out of the old Supercell games. Multiple maps with very eye-catchy graphics, but we can't destroy map itself like some other Supercell games. The only saving grace in that regards is the cat, which we can pet whenever we want. So in terms of visuals, I'll give it a 6 out of 10, taking its total to 22 out of 30. So now we come to the tier list part, as to which game I would love to keep playing as a new player after a single hour of impression. The formula that I would use to rank will be based on 3:2:1, meaning each gameplay point have a multiplier of 3, each storyline point has a multiplier of 2, and visual points are only multiplied by 1. So with a total score of 11, we have Heyday at rank 7 and tier C. With 26 total points, we have Squad Busters at tier B. Then with 30 total points, we have Boom Beach at rank 5 and tier B. Then next with 31 total points, we have Clash Royale at rank 4 and tier A. Then with 32 total points, we have Clash of Clans at rank 3 and tier A. And this might be my most controversial pick, I'll say even worthy of getting hate, but with 37 total points, we have Moko at rank 2nd and tier A. And then lastly, with a massive score of 53, we have Brawl Stars at rank 1 and tier S. And yup, with that the list comes to an end. I have said it multiple times, but will say it again, that all of the tier list are based on personal experience of each and every individual. So if you have a different opinion than me, do let me know in the comments below. And while at it, join the Discord server from the pinned comment. Thanks for watching and just keep grinning.